I've decided to call this an impressions video over a formal review because the game is still very early in its development. Released in early access over 6 months ago, with the last major update occurring in December of 2021, Himno, the Silent Melody, is a work of passion by a single developer. So, here are my thoughts after 6 hours of playtime. Roguelites are tricky games to assess because a big facet of the game is the unlimited replayability. It is really hard to know the depths of appreciation of triple-digit hours into an experience, but I'd like to think those hours are predicated on strong gameplay and design choices. When assessing these games, questions plague me like, what makes a great roguelite? How do we evaluate the components and which of them matter in the long run? Certain games like Hades, Rogue Legacy, and Dead Cells really bank on their endearing art styles, enemy variety, weapon variety, and the underlying lore to carry their fan bases into a lifetime of quality entertainment, and for the purposes of examining Himno, I will be using these games as a backbone to understand my impressions. When it first starts up, Himno is a melodious and soothing affair. The 8-bit aesthetics and subtle animation details do a lot to charm us into accepting the simplicity of it all. The music satisfies the dark mystery and keeps us wondering what we will find after exploring each new cube that appears. There is a hub world where you can cultivate workbenches and even terraform the level to create your own keep, where you store all your items, level up your character, and change cosmetics. From there you warp into a starting district, and the whole point of the game is to ascend higher and higher up the districts while hitting checkpoints and bosses every 5 districts or so. Every new sound and new item I find exhilarates my senses with tufts of pixels and jingles of pleasant noises that make running around and exploring an almost therapeutic experience. I like the amount of content, and I'm always finding new items in areas I've heavily explored, and that makes me wonder what is waiting for me down the road. What drags the experience down lies in the learning curve, the time it takes to understand the combat, the relationship between the crafting materials, benches, and equipping your character. The act of gathering resources to build up your hub world opens up a tedious loop that makes you burn a lot of time in order to prepare your future self for some unknown challenge, and after several loops of the same 5 districts, it gets monotonous, especially when you lose them all to some wonky stone golem. This ends up wasting time only to see that 0% has been accomplished, and leaves me a bit wary of what kind of joy I am meant to have while learning to get good. Combat is also held back by a mixture of encounter design and enemy variety. The encounters are generally laid out the same, with a part of the level having the enemy mob awaken when you come close, and then the mob tracks you and shoots at you with a few bullet dodge spray patterns, and it's up to you to use melee or ranged attacks while shielding or using the terrain to block bullets. While simple and approachable, the encounters grow stale quickly as you recognize the copy and pasted feel of each time you fight. Each new enemy you find is very similar to the last one, with a few minor cosmetic changes and changes to behavior, and certain enemies force you to utilize cheap or tedious tactics to chip away at spongy health pools. And when I say this, I mean this stone golem. This guy is an asshole. They will kill you in 2 hits, they are missing sound cues to inform you of their attacks, and they take about 20 swipes with the base sword to defeat. There are usually 1 or 2 of these per level, and the rewards you get for fighting them are not worth it. So a bit of an unbalanced and unfun combat experience awaits you in each district. Personally, I leaned into the boomerang, and that was able to handle most situations. So go boomerang. The procedural nature of the game is concerning as well, as each new biome is a light dressing change in color and a few fauna. The districts are all too similar to one another, and that makes the replayability of the game a little less interesting, as I feel as though I've seen it all by the time I cross the second boss fight. This of course could be wrong, as I have not seen all of what the game has to offer, and there's new content in development as we speak, and I'm still stuck in the beginning trying to gather loot and figure out the best strategy for surviving. Another nuisance to the pacing, and I'm not sure if this is an error or intentional, happens when you start a round from an advanced checkpoint. The advanced checkpoint puts you in a boss level that you then have to fight again after getting to the next checkpoint, and even then it is unclear what district level you're supposed to get to in order to receive another checkpoint, which leads to frustration and tedious repetition that dulls quickly as you are forced to go through another loop to simply gather materials, only to fight the same boss twice. Then once you feel like you've made the slightest amount of progress forward, you die to some new unrealized danger and have to start all over again. Despite its shortcomings, in the heart of the experience is a dark and soothing exploration that beckons you to learn more about its systems. Part of me yearns for a bit more direction on how to effectively use each bench, but I also appreciate being left alone to discover things on my own. I was left with this empty notion that perhaps the game is utterly lacking in balance and forces you to grind a grindy grind for the sake of grinding for a very little satisfaction. I wished for better options to store my supplies without wiping my entire run. I wished for more lenient punishments for dying early on as the progression felt stagnant, and tiny upgrades along the way were mere teases that felt like I hadn't really improved at all. While I struggle to recommend this title, I find a longing to push further into it. Every time I boot up and experience the tones and the charm of the aesthetics, I am motivated to try to push as deep as I can, only to realize I am underprepared and get one-shotted by another stone golem or a repetitive boss encounter and quickly shut the game off in frustration, longing for a more gratifying experience, with the added frustration of knowing that this is an alpha build of someone's passion, and I will have to wait patiently for the full release to fully enjoy its offerings. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and be sure to check out my Twitch page for more daily content, which will be linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.